Hey guys, how are we doing? Welcome to Walking Boxing. It is Tuesday, October 22nd, 2024, and I've got to say it's a nice warm one today. Probably no need actually for the top on. Little Neil struggling a little bit here. It's going to be, I think it's going to be like high 20s here today, which is just very, very unusual. But yeah, I think we're going to keep in the shade a little bit as we make our way home. A little bit more update on the Tim Tszyu situation over there in the States. I've got to say it was really good last night to do the Talking Boxing show. We had really good viewership and comments. We struggled to actually get through all the comments, but I really liked and welcomed all the feedback that we had about the Tim Tszyu fight. Now, a lot of it was good and a lot of it was bad. A lot of it was in between. But it's really good. That's why I love the show. I love the forum that we have, because it's really interesting to get so many different points of view. And now that the dust is starting to settle a little bit as well, I think everyone's emotions become a little bit more in check. And it was just a really good conversation last night, and a lot of back and forth, from some people in the chat as well, which is good, as long as it's a healthy discussion and you're not sort of insulting each other. I think we can sort of get both sides of the argument. But first of all, it was great to see Tim actually speak. It's probably the first time he's spoken, of course, apart from the 2-minute pretty much train wreck little interview that he did straight after the fight that I still insist should not have happened. Someone should have said, Tim, really, it's a great gesture to have a quick chat after the fight, but just didn't make any sense. And again, I think someone should have pulled him up on that and said, not happening. But anyway, he looked like he'd gone for a bit of a walk by himself, which is not a bad idea. Look, I think it was pretty early morning or maybe late evening, I'm not quite sure. It looked like early morning because he looked a bit tired. And, it would have been really hard for him to get on there, but I think it was probably a good thing to take the walking boxing approach and just try and clear his head by himself and get the phone out and maybe just have a quick word. And look, he didn't say a lot, but I think he probably just said what he needed to say just to really get that off his chest and just say the minimum or minimal amount. Now, one thing he said, and it's obviously been instilled in him as a kid. What did he say? His dad always really drilled into them that, if you shoot for the stars and you crash and burn, well, at least you got to get up and keep going, or something like that. Anyway, but so you get the impression that he'll obviously be back. That was probably never in question, but he said big fights will be coming soon. Let's hope so. Look, I'll stand by that. He's a fair bit away from getting those big fights, probably those overseas fights. Of course, everyone's pointing now to the Michael Zerafa fight. That caught fire yesterday too, didn't it? That Michael, I think I said last night on the show that it was either going to go two ways. We're going to see a reserved Michael Zerafa who would say, oh, well, you've got to support the Aussies, it's bad luck, hope he regroups and I'm here if he wants me. But no, he went on the offensive and really laid the boots in. You talk about a lot of people online laying the boots in. Well, Michael Zerafa just showed no mercy. And look, that's the state of play in boxing. I haven't really got a problem with it. I mean, Michael Zerafa himself, and a lot of it he brings upon himself, by the way, but the amount of let's just say colourful feedback that he got from his own experience back in March when he was stopped in 2 rounds by Erislandy Lara. So you could probably see why he would be taking the opportunity to really get stuck into Tim Tszyu. And the thing is, a lot of people agreed with him. They mightn't like him, but they agreed with him. And I'm not really going to say I'm neither here nor there, but just some of the points that he made. He just said, look, I told you. I told you he was a hype job. I told you he was nowhere near as good as his dad, and I'm going to end his career. And so, as I said, a lot of people agree with it. I don't necessarily agree with all that. I think it's a little bit of a cheap shot, I suppose. But hey, he's got to generate the fight, and I think as soon as the fight was stopped on Sunday, I think the Nikita Tszyu idea went straight out the window, and he was focused on one person, and that was Tim Tszyu. So let's see what happens there. Look, no doubt the wheels are already in motion. I do think he did actually say himself that there was a sort of a semi type of deal in place where if Tim lost, that he would be next. I still stand by that. I don't think it's a good idea. Good business sense by No Limit, but I would think in this situation, I think firstly, Glenn, Jennings, and probably, I'm not sure whether Costa will be involved as well. Glenn would say, hey, look, it's a good fight for everyone back in Australia, but for us, it doesn't make sense at the moment to jump in with someone like Michael Zerafa. No Limit, on the other hand, their first thought would be, yeah, wow, geez, this sets up a mega fight, finally gets it happening, and a big stadium fight in Australia, all that sort of stuff. But I would hope that they as well would say, hey, that it does make a lot of sense and everyone's going to make a lot of money. But if we're truly invested in our fighter and the welfare of our fighter, and we want to see him have the best chance to come back and maybe get back to where he was, that they would say, not yet, Tim, this is not the right fight for us at the moment. Michael, you're just going to have to wait. And again, I said last night that I think Tim should sit out until maybe mid-year, really get his head right and regroup, and then look at a one or two sort of gimmies, and then maybe look at a Michael Zerafa fight. But again, so many decisions to make, and I think Matt Rowe spoke again. I think it was yesterday he spoke, and he looked a lot more measured as well. So look, as I said yesterday, there's a lot of soul searching to be done amongst that team, and they've gone from hero to zero really quickly. And the one thing I've got a lot of faith in the team outside the ring to make the decisions. And there was actually a lot of talk last night as well about should Tim relocate to somewhere other than America, maybe go to Russia, maybe train under his dad, and who else could he train with? And that's probably the one thing I do agree with. The more I think about it, I think first of all he needs to get out of Australia and get over. And I think Vegas is still not a bad option for him, but maybe look at a new team inside the ring, and maybe get a bit more experience involved in the corner, and maybe a bit more knowledge, and just, I don't know, put a bit of a different spin on things for Tim. I think if he's going to reinvent himself, which is what he needs to do now, then he really needs to reinvent himself. And I don't think it's not a bad thing or anything to be ashamed of, or anything like that. Not that it's something to be ashamed of, but you know what I mean. Like it's not a bad thing to start afresh and just start with a whole new team and start again. I think it's not a bad idea, but again, only Tim can make those hard calls, and that's exactly what I think he's going to have to make, is hard calls on his decision, on his career. And isn't it amazing, the one thing I did sort of note, and not just on last night's show, but a lot of the comments online and everything else. Of course, we're all experts, aren't we? But all of a sudden, his footwork's shit, his defence is shit. He's fought nobody. He's got all these flaws, and he's stubborn. But up until now, no one had really said that sort of stuff, and that's again why, or amazing how one fight can flip everything so drastically. So anyway, but look, on Tim, he's just going to have to make those decisions, and I'm sure that he will. And there's actually there's just a snail on Neil there. I'll have to get off in a sec. I don't know how he's managed to get a snail on his back, but it's not going to hurt him. There you go, it's just fallen off anyway. So yeah, anyway, so we'll see what turn that the Tim Tszyu story, or whatever it is, takes. Over probably the next sort of 4 weeks, I would think some decisions will be made of what he's going to do and when we're looking to bring him back. But it was great to hear everyone's comments last night, and whether they were complimentary or not. I just think it's good that we can all have those conversations. All right, guys, on to some other boxing news, and there is talks have started about after Beterbiev and Bivol, the rematch. Now, Bob Arum has done an interview or a podcast or whatever it was, and stated that the rematch will most likely not take place until October next year. Now, this is due to the Riyadh season. Just going to kneel there. Yeah, the Riyadh season, and it actually I think runs from October to February. That is the Riyadh season, and yes, they have run events outside of that. They've run them in, what was it, August for the Terence Crawford Madrimov fight. I think they did one. This fight was actually originally scheduled for June. Of course, that didn't take place then. So there has been some examples of them being outside those dates, but what's apparently happening is that there's been some pushback from above from Turki Al Sheikh, and yes, he has to answer to people. Because originally this was supposed to be a brand building exercise for Saudi Arabia. Now they call it sports washing, where they invest a shitload of money in events to try and make people forget about some of the stuff that happens in that country. And Saudi Arabia is probably one of the worst out there. So, but there's been some pushback that if he's going to do these events, it must be outside, in those months. None of this, picking dates whenever you want and putting under the Riyadh season banner. Has to be between October and February, and the events will be in Saudi Arabia. So I think the push into England and America will cease. I would think there will be no more fights outside of Saudi Arabia, and if they're going to give him the massive budget that they've given him, that will be the case where. As I said, he's got to do it within those months and in Saudi Arabia. I don't think it changes too much, but that is the reason why they can't do Beterbiev and Bivol before October next year, because of course February is going to be way too early, and they just can't do it. So does that just stifle the Turkey train just a little bit? It gives him a 4-month window, so it's really hard to do all these big fights in a 4-month window. Who knows? We might just get a 4-month avalanche of massive fights. I'm not sure, but yeah, is this the first sign of just maybe pulling it back a little bit and maybe just having his wings clipped just a little bit? We've talked about this for a while, that what happens if the powers above Turki Al Sheikh say, we're a little bit over this, so we're just going to pull the rug out, and then there is nothing. That's always been the risk of everything that's been going on with the Saudi situation. At least with the other promoters, they're in it for the long haul. This could be over with a click of the fingers. So anyway, hopefully this is not the first step in that situation where they pulled him back to those parameters, and if he steps out of that anymore, they might just pull it entirely. Let's hope not anyway, but I thought that was interesting. So it allows Beterbiev to have his mandatory at least against is it Ifat, I think his name is, whoever that is, and Bivol will no doubt have another fight as well. So the good news is they are talking about the rematch. All right, another fight to talk about before we finish up today, and we are very, very close to Sam Goodman getting his opportunity against Inoue. That fight looks like it's going to take place on Christmas Eve in Tokyo. So Sam looks like he's gotten what he's wished for. A lot of pushback about this fight. I'm not that stressed about it. I think it's good on Sam for getting his opportunity. I could probably see why non-Australian fans aren't real happy about it. It'd be probably, in their minds, probably second or third soft touch in a row. But at least he's fighting regularly. At least he's fronting up every fronting up every 3 or 4 weeks. So I like it. 3 or 4 months. So I don't mind it. And obviously from an Australian point of view, I like the fact that Sam's going to get his shot. Not a lot of people giving him an opportunity, but hey, you got to be in it to win it. So that looks like Christmas Eve in Tokyo, Japan. That will be. And Bob Arum also, just on Inoue, did sort of hint that there would be a massive fight for him. I think that was his exact words, actually a massive fight for Inoue in Las Vegas in April. Now, the only one I can probably think of is Nakatani, but surely there's no way in hell they would do that fight in Las Vegas. That would have to be in Japan. So I'm not sure what other massive fights are out there for Inoue that could take place in April. But and strange enough too, on Inoue, and I just sort of read the comments. I can't help myself sometimes, and I shouldn't, because there's some absolute friggin' peanuts out there. But some real pushback on Inoue now about, you're playing it safe at 122, and why don't you go to 126, and you're just a fraud and this. This is a guy that's, what, 3, 4, is it 3? Whatever it is, a multi-division world champion who I think has gone to 122 outside what is his probably best fighting weight, which is probably 118, gone to 122 to chase a bit of greatness. But no, he's not allowed to stay there and clean out that division and maybe stay where he's comfortable and maybe wait for Nakatani to come up and fight him, or even go back to 118. No, all those experts out there want him to go to 126 and question his legacy if he doesn't go to 126. Since when is it party legacy just to continue to move up in weight? I don't get it. Some of the greatest fighters in history stayed at one division. Marvelous Marvin Hagler, perfect example. Middleweight, one of the greatest fighters of all time. I don't understand. I know a lot of those great fighters have moved up, I understand it, but I'm not sure where it's written in, you know, the rules of boxing greatness that you have to continually move up in weight. And on Inoue, he has actually moved up weight, what, 3 or 4 times. So I'm not sure why there's this push to continually move up to the point where eventually you're going to lose. That's just what's going to happen. He's going to run in, and they always say, you know, enough weight will stop a train. And that's what's going to happen. So what do they want? They just want him to continue to move up. I mean, this ridiculous talk about him fighting Tank Davis at one stage. I mean, I think we've just got to be a bit more realistic as boxing fans and just appreciate these guys for what they are, because the Inoues and Canelos and all those types of guys, just like Mayweather and Pacquiao and De La Hoya and all that before them, Duran, Leonard Hearns before them, Chavez, of course. We've got to appreciate them while they're around, and don't just push them to continue to break through barriers that are just going to end probably in one way, and that's defeat. But anyway, I just love the era we're in now with the stars that we have, and I'm just going to try and appreciate Inoue for as long as we can, just like Canelo and the others. Jesus, there's a truck that's almost flipped on its side there. Slow down a bit there, buddy. All right, guys, that'll do for today. Give me your thoughts about Tim and Beterbiev and Bivol, and even Inoue if you want. How does Sam Goodman go in that fight? I'm thinking I know the answer to that one, but anyway, tell me anyway. So guys, that is it for today. Have a good one, and we'll catch you tomorrow.